Music is a fundamental part of human existence. When given the choice between never listening to music again or never finding love, many choose option 2. Here, we try to discover what goes on behind the scenes, what music really tells us, and what secrets the industry gatekeeps from people like us. In this episode, we're asking the question, what makes a good song good? My name is Matthew Halupka, and this is Between the Notes.
Yo, don't settle for what you know. Between the Notes. Aim for music and nation.
Before diving deep into what makes a song good, it's important we understand how the average person thinks about music. So I went to the TMU campus to ask people what they think about their favorite songs.
What is your favorite music genre and what draws you to it?
It changes a lot, but right now I'd say it's classic rock. I have a lot of childhood memories associated with it.
I love Britpop, and I am a child of the 80s, so I love 70s, 80s, 90s, but 80s in particular.
R&B has been something that has stuck with me since I was a little girl.
Probably rock and roll. The flow, the feeling it gives off, the vibe it gives me.
And what would you say is the most important part of a song for you?
I really have an appreciation for
the rhythm, definitely the rhythm.
Drums, the bass.
It's got to be memorable. It's got to have earworm potential.
Like often, I'm working out or I'm driving or something, and I want to get in the zone, and I'll be listening to a song that's not even in any language I understand. I'll be really in it because the rhythm is great and the beat is great and it flows well.
And last question, how has your music taste changed over the years?
I used to really be into pop music, which is kind of funny because it's kind of full circle. I grew up on classic rock, then when I was in high school, got really into pop music, top 40 music. But then I started making friends that were also musicians, and they showed me a bunch of other stuff, and it really helped me branch out. Now I'm getting into prog rock and stuff like that.
Well, like I said, I feel like I've been listening to R&B since I was pretty young because that was what was on my mom's iPod. But I think that in terms of how it's changed, I've just kind of opened myself up to listening to more genres.
When I was 10, I listened to popular music, and then I started just getting more into what I like, and now it's just unique to my vibe that I want to have.
There seems to be a lot of people talking about emotional attachment that they have to certain songs and the patterns within those songs.
Now that we understand how the average Joe hears music, I brought on a songwriter to describe how he taps into these feelings. Today I'm with Luciano Boniface, songwriter for Echo the Screen, and he's going to be talking about his new song, Frankenstein.
Hello, Matthew Halupka. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
This is pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I've never been on a podcast or anything like this before.
Well, everyone, first time for everything.
Exactly. Thank you for the invite. Wow. I songwrite for Echo the Screen, as Matthew just said. We do indie pop together, a little bit of surf pop as well, if you want to call it that. Got a lot of inspiration from Dick Dale for the sound, but we're going to be going through the chorus today, yeah, and just describing inspiration and songwriting stuff. Also, add this to the beginning. I'm sick as hell. I apologize. My voice sounds not great, and my making a lot of noises that I usually wouldn't. Is there anything you want to add there?
No, I just want to ask, what was your main inspiration for the entire song? Not just the chorus, but for the entire song to start.
Well, it's a love song in the end. It's like a push and pull of someone who's not really there. Someone who comes in and out of your life and doesn't make you feel very good. But usually when I start my songs, when it comes to songwriting, is we get a instrumental down first. I hum a bunch of stuff or I whistle. And then once you have a melody you like, I like to put my words on top of that. So for example, this one, it was the original, you can play it here, but it's the original 4 chords of the guitar in the beginning, the dun, 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 that thing. I found in a different song. I thought it was a really cool progression. It sounded a little bit different, but then I took that, put it into Ableton, and then started just humming some stuff over it. So I had verse to begin with, pre-chorus came after that, chorus. I kind of did it in order of how you would actually sing the song, which was nice. It all came super naturally.
Why don't we just get right to it? Let's play the first part of the song that you want to show me.
Love me when you need me, but you throw it all behind, and I don't know if I could ever learn to turn and read the signs. 'Cause I was a monster till you, Dr. Frankenstein, you ran away.
So that was the first half of the chorus. It repeats after that, just with more instrumentation. We can kind of go piece by piece if we break it down a little bit here. Something that I like to do when it comes to songs is that if you have a verse that is more sparse, then your chorus can have like a little bit more movement, right? So my verses are pretty chill, more laid back. There's not a lot of, let's say, like rhythmic stuff going on. So therefore in the chorus, I can put a lot more into it. You can see that in a lot of other pop songs. If a pop song has like really fast moving verses, then the chorus is usually going to be something really slow or not that much to it. So this is the opposite, right? Verses don't have much to it. So then the chorus, I put a lot of words. Love me when you need me, but you throw it all behind, right? Like there's not a lot of room to breathe in it because I want to have like somebody essentially spilling their guts out, right?
If you listen to the rest of the song, which I encourage you to do, a lot of the verses, they're very like, he says like maybe 3 or 4 words, and then he stops, continues after like a couple seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of that chorus, that part of the chorus, sorry, what caused you to change it from, because just before that chorus, there's a lot more instruments. And at the beginning of the chorus, it kind of goes into more of an a cappella. Why did you choose to do that?
Exactly, yeah. So pre-chorus, we have like the misery goes, misery stays, boom, boom. Like you have the drums there to kind of like signify when it's going to move on. When it comes to the chorus and the instrumentation sort of stripping down so you can only hear the vocals, I really want people to be focusing on the voice, right? Especially because the chorus does have so many words and so many like things to remember in it, right? It's a lot of information at once. I didn't want to have like a lot of extra stuff distracting people, like the instruments, like other stuff. So kind of have a distorted guitar in the background, like the sort of the dream pop inspiration there. I didn't mention that before, but I liked a lot of like not necessarily psychedelic, but stuff that just puts you in like a trance, right? And then keeping the simple guitar chords just to like ground you in the song. So having it stripped down for the first half at least is so you focus on the words, focus on the vocalist. And then when the second half of the chorus comes in, all the instrumentation comes in. It's much more of a groove, much more of a vibe. But then you can kind of stay with it rather than focusing on the lyrics.
Speaking of the second part of the chorus, why don't we play the second part of the chorus so they can get a better understanding of what you're saying?
Sounds good, sounds good.
Love me when you need me, but you throw it all behind, and I don't know if I could ever learn to turn and read the signs. Yes, I was a monster to you, Dr. Frankenstein, you ran away.
First thing I noticed is the drums came in on that part, and that gets my head moving, right?
Mm-hmm. I really wanted it to have more of a groove, like I was mentioning earlier. So that drum coming in, especially with like we had like, it's like pan flute or like an organ sort of thing in the background, like really getting a lot of that surf instrumentation, surf sound. So when you sit in it, I really wanted you to like feel like you're at the beach or something, or like a sunny day. If you listen to the lyrics, right, they're meant to be like really sad, but the instrumentation and stuff is really happy. I've had a lot of people tell me, and what I was going for was like, when you hear the song, you feel happy, but you listen to the lyrics and you're like, wow, this is really depressing, right? So love me when you need me, but you hold it, throw it all behind, and I don't know if I could ever learn to turn and read the signs. Guess I was the monster to your Dr. Frankenstein. You ran away. Not exactly a happy story.
Yeah, no. So what can you actually tell me about the lyrics? Like, obviously writing lyrics is a very specific process. There's a lot of drafting and reworking in it. What let those lyrics be in the final cut?
So we start with the melody, right? Love me when you need me, but you throw it all behind. I guess like when I put the words there, it's a love song, so I want to have love in it at one point. Like, I'm kind of a sucker, a little bit corny like that, but it's weird to describe. It comes kind of naturally. What I do a lot, which is kind of funny, is I pull up like Rhyme Zone. You ever heard of Rhyme Zone before?
I think so.
Yeah, it's just like a website. It's used by a lot of like poets and stuff, but it's you put in a word and then it gives you like synonyms and it gives you like rhymes, obviously, right? But I kind of mess with not just rhymes but near rhymes. Feels like there's a bit more effort going into it. So throw it all behind Dr. Frankenstein. Near rhymes but not the actual rhyme, which is really nice. And that's what I was kind of going for. The Frankenstein hook actually came because I had a throw it all behind. So that was one of the first lyrics I came up with. It was like da-na-na-na-na-na, throw it all behind. And I was like, okay. Sounds pretty good. And then when I was searching up those near rhymes, right? And then I was trying to figure out, you can search up like syllables too, right? So single syllable, 2, 3, right? Frankenstein, being that 3, I wanted to vary it up a bit. And then once I had that Frankenstein imagery, everything else really came together, is what I'll say. This is a love song, but someone who's like, almost like the creation of someone else, right? They were like molded by someone else to be someone who perhaps they're not, or something like that. But the main thing is like agency. The doctor is the one in the story who leaves Frankenstein, right? Frankenstein's the one who's left behind and doesn't really have a say in anything. Once I had that sort of like imagery, that sort of story going on, then I was like, okay, all the other lyrics came really naturally. I just need to fit it within that narrative. Like, again, I always start with the melody, and I like to have the melody everywhere in the song before I even start putting down lyrics.
Whenever I've written any songs, that's exactly what I did. I mean, I'm not really the best at writing lyrics, but
I've heard your lyrics. They're pretty good.
Yeah, well. First thing is the instrumental that I do. Well, that's the most fun part for me, honestly. But then layering on a melody, and then what I do, and I don't know if you do the same thing, but I try to fit words within the melody that I've already written. So I don't write the words and then I can change the melody. I've already written the melody, but I just try to match the words and all the syllables to that melody.
Yes, exactly. I love that so much. So once you have the melody, you can really hear the syllables in your head. Every now and then I'll adjust it slightly. Like sometimes I like doing like a pickup on a line, which I haven't thought of before, or like I adjust it to make it, because I don't like my verses being the same each time, right? With like their melody, and like you gotta add a bit of variation, like keep that ear candy, I guess, going. Once you have the melody, all the syllables are there, then you just find stuff to fit those syllables. And sometimes the syllables will really naturally fit together, like Dr. Frankenstein, da-na-na-na-na, right? Those are the last 5 or 6 songs. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5. So then I was like, okay, I want to like group them together, right? The up, down, up, down, up. So it felt really natural to have like a 2 then a 3 instead of anything else.
What was your inspiration for the melody?
It's like jazz. How I first became like a songwriter essentially was jazz band. So I was in classical band for a long time, played bass, clarinet, all that stuff. But you always perform right to what the conductor wants, right? You have this one purpose, this one vision, and you learn exactly how it needs to be done. But when it comes to jazz band, which I really loved, is the stuff on paper is like, okay, this is just the blueprint, but then you can mess around with it. You can do whatever you want. Like I love writing solos on top of stuff. So we do like these solo things essentially in our practices where we just take 8, 12 bars or whatever. The band would just play in the background. Then we'd let people just get up and start doing stuff like riffing. And when I did probably not my first solo, but one of my first solos, I remember afterwards, like I had a really fun time with it because I wrote this solo out in my head. Well, it's kind of in real time is what I'll say. Like you don't write it out beforehand when you're in jazz. You just do stuff, right? So that's a lot of the songwriting for me is like I hear stuff and then I just start riffing. I keep riffing until something cool happens. So in this one solo I did at school, at least, I took the melody of the main piece and then incorporated in my solo. And then I remember my conductor stopped the band afterwards and he was like, like everyone was like dead silent. It was so nice. And one of my friends was like, okay, when you're famous, just, remember us. And I was like, oh my God, it felt so good. It felt so good. And that's essentially what I do when it comes to songwriting is the instrumental that you do, like we talked about, right? We do the instrumental first. That is the backing track. And then you just solo on it. Almost like my voice is the saxophone there. And I just keep going up and down. Like I do like the scale, or I try to like whatever key I'm in, right? Or I just try to find like these cool little riffs essentially, and if I find a riff that really gets stuck in my own head, then I know I've found something good, because I am like a super like I listen to popular music, not exactly pop, but like whatever gets a lot of listens, like pretty much any genre, because I just like having these earworms in my head all day, and if I can get something stuck in my own head, then I think I've done something good.
I guess it would be similar to the way you write lyrics, is starting with a structure and then building around it, and the way that you write the melody, because when you write your lyrics, you have it kind of the rest of everything kind of filling in the gaps, and that's kind of what the same idea as the melody, right? You have the bass, which is the song, but the melody kind of flows through and around all the little gaps and stuff in the song. Because if you listen to a song without lyrics, it just sounds kind of empty. And so that melody kind of flows through all the empty space.
Exactly. When you make a really good instrumental, it's almost like a conversation, right? Like the backing track does something and then you are reacting to it, and the backing track then reacts to what you just did.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Where can the people find you?
Oh, the people. I'm on like.
Where can the people?
Well, I'm on Instagram myself. I think I have like a Luciano Boniface account, but ideally you're following Echo the Screen, because that's the artist that I'm working with, and that's the project that I'm most proud of. He's on all streaming platforms, Echo the Screen, Frankenstein, or on Instagram, TikTok, anything like that.
Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Music.
Oh, YouTube, yeah.
YouTube. Be sure to check it out. Thank you very much again for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've discussed the what and the how, but the most important part is the why. To answer that, I got one of my friends on the phone with me. It's time for our Caller Symphony.
Operator, I wanna make a call. I can seem to connect with anyone at all. Pick up the phone.
Today, we have a guest that's going to help talk about music and its cultural significance. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Matthew. Thanks for having me. My name is Taizo. Anyone who knows me can tell you that I'm pretty into music and I'm pretty into history. So, given that this is kind of where music and history and culture sort of intersect, I think I'm pretty qualified to talk about this.
Can you tell me why one person will love Taylor Swift and hate metal, and one person will love metal but hate Taylor Swift?
Well, it comes down to a couple things. I think, for one, we got to talk about the fact that music is, playing on different emotions. And we as humans with infinite range of identities, emotions to be expressed, we're going to want to hear different things, right? So not only is it that, it's also the fact that it plays into our identities, I think. The example we talked about before, we were talking about the fact that, when a guy who's like feeling so tough at the gym, doing his bicep curls, listening to the Deftones, when he makes that the soundtrack to his life, that's kind of reaffirming his identity he has for himself, right? Like, oh, I'm the tough guy. I might just punch you in the face. I'm so broody and misunderstood.
Yeah, like I find that when I listen to a song that I listened to in like 2020, I kind of get taken back to the way I felt back then and the way that like my surroundings impacted me back then. Yeah, so it's definitely has to do with the way we view ourselves more than anything, honestly. The way
Well,
we
yeah, I mean,
identify.
music is really a great mnemonic device because it's something that our brains are perfectly optimized to do. Recognize patterns, right? Inferring complex information from these patterns, and that's what we're doing from this music, right? The more you learn to read, the more you learn to, infer different types of information from that type of reading. And the same goes for music. That's why some people are just a lot more accustomed or used to, getting different information from different types of music. And obviously, there's infinite room for patterns to recognize here. It's not just the rhythms and beats. It's also, the scales involved, the melodies, even the textures and type of sounds and instruments are being used. There's infinite range for variations, but we're all recognizing them.
For the patterns thing, the way where it makes sense to me is that humans are very good at identifying patterns in anything, right? That's why the thing where people were like, "Oh, there's a face on the moon," when it was a rock that with the sunlight looked like a face, right? We're so good at identifying patterns in every single thing that it only makes sense that music would have patterns because that used to be how we remembered things. If you ever listen to a song to help you learn how to spell a word, right, when you were in like grade 1 or 2 or something like that, and you can still remember it to this day because music is great for memory and all that kind of stuff. The part of our brain that processes music is actually older than the part that processes speech.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, what is more just absolutely primally, powerful than something like a war drum? You can tell when that's supposed to be intimidating. There's just an enormous range of types of like feelings you can get, and that's because they come from different contexts, right? You can't really remove the music from. Like, why do we talk about, oh, this song changed my brain chemistry? It probably actually did, right? What this song makes me feel this way. It takes me back to this moment, right? These are real things they're talking about. That's why they're playing off real emotions. That's why we can't really separate it from its context and just think of it as, oh, like this sounds nice. They must have hit all the right frequencies, right? No, it's an expression of human culture.
So why does a song sound nice? Like, what makes the song sound nice? That's the aim of this entire episode, is what makes a song a good song.
Based on what we've kind of talked about, I'd say it comes down to the culture around it, because obviously that's hugely important. It comes down to the patterns within it, and it comes down to your personal connection with it as well. All those things are going to matter. And these are going to inform the type of emotions you might want to hear or might not want to hear from music you might like or might not like.
Yeah, like how you identify within your culture is how you are going to listen to the music, right? Like early rap and punk, they're very similar. They don't sound very similar, but they're talking about the same things, right? When you listen to the music.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think both those things are popular with Disillusion to you? They're kind of both taking on a similar stance of, hey, I have something to say, this is how I feel about myself. With punk, it might have been more, oh, I'm angry at the world and society. And with a lot of, contemporary rap, the point of it is that, you feel cool listening to it, right? You're, going back to what we talked about earlier, you're reaffirming that identity of, I'm a cool guy, I have something to say,
yeah,
right, about myself or about the world.
They're a lot more similar than people think because they sound so different, but they're actually very, very closely related just because of where they actually come from. Why were they made, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're both countercultural, so to speak. People talk about, oh, why does it sound like this? Why does it have this attitude? Well, they come from real emotions and attitudes towards, the world around them. That's how these things started, right? People were looking to express those emotions about, being pissed off with, early punk rock for a reason, right? There's a whole generation of people it could appeal to.
Yeah. So that in mind, would you agree that the answer to my initial question of why someone would like Taylor Swift and hate metal and vice versa would be, well, they're in the state of mind that they feel like they identify with Taylor Swift's struggles that are within her songs, right? The struggles she describes and not the one in metal.
I'd say that's a big component, but let's not forget, people who might identify as more like traditionally macho or whatever, might still have like a guilty pleasure enjoyment for these, sweet pop songs, right? So there's obviously more to it. And I think a big part of it is the fact that the music you want to hear plays on the emotions you want to feel and the textures around it you want to feel, right? A lot of guys might not want to talk about the fact that, they like some sweet, soft pop ballads that, touch on their sensitive side. And they might not even want to admit
they're
that,
easy to like, right?
but they enjoy it.
When you listen to someone like Sabrina Carpenter, her music is not the most dynamic or interesting, but it's easy to like just because it's like simple.
And I'm sure people infer meaning from it that, I don't understand. And those are just patterns I'm not accustomed to, or feelings that I'm not really interested in feeling, right? And people might say like, I just like it for, because it sounds nice. It makes me feel nice. But past that, it's still making you feel something, because that's what art is supposed to do.
Yeah, I know we were talking about this earlier, and we came to the conclusion that patterns in those types of songs and in pop music are a lot easier to understand and to pick up on in something like Taylor Swift. Whereas in metal, it's a lot harder for your brain to deconstruct and figure out what those patterns are, because it's a lot of like, it's just it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to someone that hasn't listened to it. That's why like it takes a minute to get into it.
Yeah, I remember. I used to hear, back in early high school, I would hear you and Ramo talk about metal as just obnoxious screaming, right? And then, you guys are both metalheads now, right? So it is something you get accustomed to. There's a reason people talk about kind of a pipeline with heavy music sometimes even. They talk about, I was into just hard rock, and then that got me into, like, Metallica eventually, and then it just became heavier and heavier. So really, you're just getting accustomed to certain things. I think in terms of heavy music, you can kind of compare it to spicy food.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison.
Like somewhat, you can't just get straight into like listening to black metal and be able to fully appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, like black metal, it's meant to sound bad, right? That's the kind of the whole point of it.
That's kind of an oversimplification. It's meant to be bare bones. It's meant to be raw. People wouldn't be making music if they didn't enjoy it, right? I've found black metal I've been able to enjoy, and it's really not my thing, but the truth is, people who really like it, they have a palate that is accustomed to things that perhaps I cannot appreciate.
And I think, right?
It's
just like...
You talk about this with wine and steak,
too. Can your brain figure out those patterns? It becomes more difficult for your brain to be able to deconstruct those patterns as you get kind of heavier and heavier. And it doesn't even just necessarily isn't specific to metal, but I'm just using that as the example, right? Whereas someone that's really into metal probably won't like a lot of like Taylor Swift as much, because those patterns have become too easy for your brain to figure out, right? It's not as challenging anymore. It's not as fun.
You know what? I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's because the pop melodies are so very simple. I think it is just playing off different emotions. Because if you listen to a lot of the metal that's popular with people, a lot of it really is just, if you change the instruments, they become pop melodies. Right, perfect example of this, like Metallica, Sleep Token. Like these are just pop melodies with guitars, frankly, and there's nothing bad about that, right? But people like different textures. People like different emotions. People want to feel different things from the music. They want to feel different because they're listening to it.
Yeah. So I guess it would be a mix of pattern recognition and also our feelings and the culture we're in currently, right?
Yeah, you can't separate the music from its culture, right? You're just talking about rap and punk rock, right? Two things that are very strongly political, right? Even if it's not meant to be talking about, government or things like that, you can't remove it from its context. You can't remove the fact that you might say, I don't think this Rihanna song is inherently political, but no, politics is something people misunderstand, where they think you're talking about something controversial. When people say they want to remove music from politics, it means they want to remove uncomfortable conversations. Politics arises anytime you have two or more people in the same place at the same time, right? Talking about how much they love a person, right? That's kind of political. Some people would say, oh, no, you shouldn't be talking about that. You should be more modest in some countries. You talking about anything to do with human expression of, with this simple country song, I like trucks and my beer and whatever, right? Those things that might be contested to some people, right? They might say, like, this is indicative of a very certain culture. If your favorite rapper is talking about how he's from the hood, right? That's a political thing, even if it's not meant to be. That's reflecting a larger context, which, you can't really remove the music from.
Yeah, politics are kind of in everything. Well, all right, we're out of time. That'll wrap it up.
All right, well, thank you very much. This was a very pleasant conversation.
All right, bye-bye. Well, that'll just about do it for this episode. Today we both learned a lot about why good songs are so good. I hope that you have a good rest of your day, evening, or night, and as always, aim for musical inclination.
Back to the beat.